We are now discussing about Turing machines. We have seen the structure of a Turing machine, transitions, and later we have discussed how we can design a Turing machine as a language acceptor. Today, we are going to discuss the class of languages represented by the family of Turing machines, and also we will look at the Chomsky classification of formal languages. So today the topic is the language class represented by the family of Turing machines. So before we formally define the language accepted by a Turing machine, so let us see what is a configuration in a Turing machine. So given this Turing machine, we know that there is a control unit with finitely many states, a semi-infinite tape where the number of cells is infinite, the right side is not bounded, and given this, the input is a square, b square, c square, and after the input, all the tape cells are assumed to have the blank symbol, and in the left it is delimited with the left hand marker. So given this, the question is, formally how can you represent a configuration like this? We can see that a configuration is defined by the first component is the current state. In the given example, it is P. And the next component in the configuration is the content of the tape at this instant. Now you can see that it is left hand marker followed by a square, b square, c square, then blank symbols on all the cells. There are infinitely many cells, so you can say that a square, b square, c square followed by an infinite string of blank symbols. So this is how you can mathematically write it. Left hand marker followed by a square, b square, c square followed by blank infinitely many times is represented as blank to the power omega, infinite repetition of blank symbols. So that is the second component, and there is one more component defining a configuration, which is the position of the read write head. In the given example, to know the position, we need to index the cells in the tape. So you can index it like this, 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. It goes. Now that not that there are infinitely many cells, so it goes like this. The set of all natural numbers including 0. So given this, you can say that now the read write head is positioned at index 5. So that is the example to the fifth cell. So this is a configuration which is a simple concept. So given this, we can say that this configuration, example configuration, can be represented as the triple. Triple means these three components. State is P, and the content is left hand marker followed by a square, b square, c square followed by infinitely many blank symbols, and the read head is pointing to the fifth cell in the tape. So that is a configuration. More formally, a configuration of a Turing machine M is a triple P X followed by infinitely many blanks, comma N, which says that the machine M is in the state P with the non-blank take content X, because after X you have only blank, and read write head positioned at the nth symbol in the tape. Sorry, at the nth index in the tape. I hope it is okay. And now, given an input string W, you can say that initial configuration is, what would be the initial configuration? The state must be the start state, the input W followed by blank raised to omega, and in the initial configuration the read head must position to the index 0. So this is going to be the initial configuration on a given input W. So you are in the start state, only W is the non-blank content of the tape, and read write head position to the left hand marker. So that is the initial configuration for any Turing machine for a given input W. So now we looked at the configuration and we formally defined it as a triple. Now look at a transition function in a Turing machine that we have already discussed, and given this configuration, so you need a transition function from the state P for the input symbol C. Suppose you have this, if you are in state P and C, then change your state to Q, replace small c with the capital C, and move the read write head to the right. And if you apply this transition, this is what is happening. So previously the index was 5, now it is 6 because right. State is changed from P to Q. And so the configuration change is this. The configuration is the state is P, the state content is left hand marker A square B square C square followed by blank omega, and fifth is the cell to which the read head is pointing to. Now if you apply this one step transition, this means in one step, sorry for the typo, this should be Q, that I will change, Q, then left hand marker A square B square, capital C is followed by small c and blank omega. Now the read write head is positioned at cell 6. So that's it. So there is a typing mistake, this should be Q. Another example, suppose this is a transition which says you change your state to Q, replace small c with the capital C, but you move left, that is the only difference. So if you apply, this is what is going to happen. The only difference here is that in the resulting configuration, the read write head is pointing to cell number 4 because it is a left move. From 5 you position at 4. So this is the corresponding next configuration. Here again the same typing mistake is there. This must be Q. Sorry for the typing mistake. So this is how I am formally writing it. When you are performing a number of steps, you can say that from this configuration, a number of 0 or more steps or application of transition functions will take you to another configuration. So the state is not changed. Maybe you are retaining in the same state after many operations, and you replace all small a's with the capital A's, small b's with the capital B's, and small c's with the capital C's in a number of steps. So in 0 or more transitions from the original configuration, you can reach into this configuration. So with this, now I think we can look at the language accepted by a Turing machine. We are going to formally define it. So for that we need to have the configuration which is a triple, and we know that from one triple, by applying 0 or more transitions, you can go to a configuration represented by another triple. So this is what we need to discuss what we are going to see on this slide. And a Turing machine M is said to accept an input string W if from the initial configuration, not that the initial configuration is the start state, left hand marker followed by the input string, then blank symbol on all the other cells, and read write head positioned at the leftmost cell which is to the left hand marker. And suppose this happens after applying 0 or more steps in the computation, you are reaching into a configuration where the state is the accept state. and y and n can be anything. Y can be any state content and n can be any position. So if you reach into the accept state during the computation of W, then you can say that W is accepted, and not that T is a sync state, in the sense that once you reach into T, the machine has to remain in T forever. Hope you remember that. And so that is acceptance. Now we can define rejectance. A Turing machine is said to reject an input string W if from the initial configuration it reaches into a configuration where the state is the reject state. Very similar. If the state is reject state, which again is a sync state, to which if you reach, you have to remain in that state, then you can say that the string is accepted. And I hope you are getting me. And now we can ask an interesting question. Let M be a Turing machine and W is an input to M. So we are given with a Turing machine M and an input W to M. Then the question is, can we say that either M accepts W or M rejects W? So what do you think? Given a Turing machine M and a string W, the question is, can we always say that M accepts W or M rejects W? Any of these two things will happen always? So I am asking you, can you guarantee that given an input string W, only two possibilities are there? The machine is accepting it or the machine is rejecting it. And that was true in all the other automata that we discussed. But is that true here? This is a very interesting question and not easy to answer. And let me give you the answer. The answer is no. You may wonder why. Because there can be a situation where M neither accepts W nor rejects W. It can also happen. Given a W, only if the machine gets into either T or R, this is true. But there may be a situation where it is neither getting into T nor getting into R. Then what would be that situation? Let me try to tell you what it is using an example. Now suppose you have a Turing machine which is in this configuration now, and you have this transition. So what is it telling? If you are in the state P and reading the input A, what do? Change your state to Q, retain small a there, and you move right. If you apply, so this is what is happening. Right? I just moved right by retaining A and changing state to Q. Now at this state, suppose you have this transition. It says, if you are in state Q and if you are reading the small b, then what do? You change your state to P, then retain that small b in the tape and you move to the left. Suppose you apply this, what will happen? You will change the state to P and you will move left. So you will exactly get this configuration back because you are changing to P, moving to the left by retaining the small b. So you are exactly getting back. Again, this transition will apply. So this can go forever. So you are now in an infinite loop. You will never reach either T or R in this case. So this is a concrete example that I am giving you. In this case, the machine is not getting into either T or R, and in that situation, the machine is set to loop on the input. So given an input, what can happen? Either it accepts or rejects, or it loops. These are the two possibilities. And now you can define the language. The language accepted by Turing machine M is the set of all W such that M accepts W. But this is going to be a very complex language because there may be a situation where the Turing machine neither accepts W nor rejects W. So I hope you got it. Otherwise, please think about it offline. And because of the interest of time, now let us proceed. Now we are going to look at two classes of languages, namely recursively enumerable language and recursive languages. These are two classes of languages. And before we define them, let us look at another term, which is halting, which is a very important concept in Turing machines. A Turing machine M is said to halt on an input W if M either accepts W or rejects W. That is, given an input string W, the Turing machine M is said to halt on the input string if the processing either goes to the state T or goes to the state R. In these two cases, you know that if it goes to T, it is accepting it, and if it is going to R, it is rejecting it. If any of these two happen, then you can say that the machine is halting on the given input. Now recall that given an input string W, a Turing machine can do any one of the following two. It may either halt on W. Halt on W means it either enters the state T or it enters the state R, that is accepting or rejecting. Then you can say that the machine is halting, or it may loop on W. These are the two possibilities. Given an input string W to a Turing machine, the machine may halt on it or the machine may loop on it. These are the two possibilities. Halting means either entering the accept state T or entering the reject state T. Now, a language is said to be recursively enumerable, also known as semi-decidable, if there exists a Turing machine accepting the language. So, given a language L, then we can say that it is recursively enumerable when there exists a Turing machine for accepting the language. So, the family of languages represented by the class of Turing machines is called recursively enumerable languages, and they are also called semi-decidable. Now, there is another class of language. A language is said to be recursive, also known as decidable, if there exists a Turing machine M such that M is accepting that language and also M halts on all inputs. So, can you see the difference between these two? Here you need an arbitrary Turing machine which may or may not halt on a given input string. Then it is a recursively enumerable language. Suppose you have a Turing machine which is always halting, means for all input it will halt and say yes or no. So, given an input string, in this case the input string must be accepted or rejected, because for all input it is going to halt. Then that language is called recursive. And now note that all recursive languages are recursively enumerable, because you have a Turing machine which is satisfying an extra property that for all input it is going to halt. And I hope you are getting me. Now, this kind of a Turing machine which is halting on all input is called a total Turing machine, TTM, total Turing machine. This is a name that many others use. Total Turing machine means the machine which halts on all input. And the corresponding grammar is called unrestricted grammar. Okay, so it is not for the recursive, it is actually for the recursively enumerable. So this equivalence is not required. Unrestricted grammar means there is no restriction. The LHS of a production can be any string and the RHS can also be any string. The only difference is that in the LHS, epsilon is not allowed as the LHS. Okay, anyway, that is not very important for today's lecture. So the class of grammars equivalent to Turing machines are called unrestricted grammars. If you can, please try to remember. And now we are moving to the last slide of this lecture, where we are going to look at the Chomsky classification of formal languages. And if you recall which all languages we studied, we started with the class of regular languages. And if you remember, we discussed about 5 different representations of regular languages, and they are deterministic finite state automata, non-deterministic finite state automata, regular grammar, regular expressions, and Michael-Nerode relations. So these are the various representations for regular languages that we learned in this course. And if you want to look at an example language, it is the set of all strings starting with the small a and ending with small b, where x can be any string of a and b. And after the class of regular languages, we learned about deterministic context-free languages, where we have learned 2 representations, the deterministic push-down automata, and if you apply the algorithm to convert it into a context-free grammar, what you are getting is a deterministic context-free grammar. And if you want, you can see an example language, that is a to the power n, b to the power n, which is a deterministic context-free language. And after this, we learned about context-free languages, which is more powerful than deterministic context-free languages. And the representations that we discussed are push-down automata and context-free grammar. Not that this is determinist, not non-deterministic push-down automata, and they are not equivalent. And if you want to see a language, here is an example, set of all even length palindromes for which there is no deterministic push-down automata. And after the context-free languages, we learned about context-sensitive languages. And if you remember, the representations that we learned about context-sensitive languages are linear bounded automata and context-sensitive grammar. And if you want to look at a language, here is an example, a to the power n, b to the power n, c to the power n. And after context-sensitive languages, we looked at Turing machine, and the language is recursively enumerable. If there exists a Turing machine for a language, it is called recursively enumerable. And the representations we discussed are Turing machines and unrestricted grammar. We haven't looked at any concrete example of the grammar because it is not included in the syllabus, but the equivalent grammar is called unrestricted grammar. And if you want to look at a language, you can see that the language called halting problem that we discuss later. Now just an example I am mentioning here. And if you remember, we also have discussed another class of languages which is recursive. That is not only a Turing machine but a total Turing machine. This is what we discussed. So the representation is a total Turing machine. That is a Turing machine which halts on all inputs. And if you want to look at a language, you can say that a to the power n, b to the power n square. So here a linear bounded automata may not be enough, because the number of cells that you may want to use is going to be not a linear function of the input size. So any such language you can take. So this is the Chomsky classification of languages, and also not the containment relation. All deterministic context-free languages are context-free, and all context-free are context-sensitive, and all context-sensitive grammars are recursive, and all recursive languages are recursively enumerable. And with this, we are finishing this lecture, and I am giving you a practice question. You prove that this is a language, that is a set of all strings of the form W followed by W, is a recursive language. So you design a Turing machine which halts on all input and which accepts this language. So today we have looked at the class of languages represented by Turing machines, and the class is called recursively enumerable languages. And if we have a Turing machine which halts on all input, then that language is called recursive. Not just a Turing machine, but a Turing machine which halts on all input. And we also saw that given an input string W, a Turing machine may or may not halt on W. If it halts, then W is either accepted or rejected. If it is looping, that is not halting, then we cannot say whether the string W is accepted or rejected. And we also have looked at the Chomsky classification of formal languages. And that's all for today. Thank you.